Hey everybody, this is AYG's Alpha Team, here with another video for the Division. This is going to be our 1.8 Firecrest 6-piece classified build. I know it took me a while to get this out, but it was rough to try and get it to work, because it's seriously just inferior when it comes to firepower. But I built it out, and I'm going to show you 3 variations of it. This is the main one we're going to be concentrating on. I built this out for PvP, Skirmish, and Last Stand. But before we get into it, I wanted to explain Firecrest in a little bit more depth to kind of tell you why I went with what I went with. So, Firecrest. The modifiers, the set bonuses. You get set bonus 2, 3 incendiary grenade capacity, plus 3. So you get a total of 5. Set bonus 3, flame turret range and damage increase, 50% range, 30% damage. And then set bonus 4, which is kind of an important one. Your bullet damage is increased by 15% against burning targets. Now, this set bonus is specifically for weapon damage, but the Firecrest build is built around fire and tech. So we'll go over that in a second too. Set bonus 5, additional incendiary grenade capacity, so a total of 6. More turret range and damage, 5% more range, 20% more damage. And then set bonus 6. Improved Firecrest. Bullets have a 2% chance to cause enemy to burn. Another set bonus that involves firepower. Burning targets can cause a fire explosion when killed once every 10 seconds. NPCs set on fire by your flame turret will burn 25% longer for every 2,000 electronics. So, all in short, they want you to spec into electronics. To get the most out of this build, you need to spec into electronics. But there are 2 things that involve firepower, so fire damage. Set bonus 4, and then part of set bonus 6, the 2% chance to cause enemies to burn. So, it's kind of a hat in a hat, or not hat in a hat, but it's kind of a catch-22. Like, you need to spec into electronics, but but part of the set bonuses involve firepower. So it kind of threw me for a loop. To make it as effective as possible, you pretty much just have to spec into electronics. But I built one out right here. You can see this one labeled PvP. I built one out for firearms. We're going to go over that briefly, and then we're going to go over the regular Firecrest that I built out, and then the one I built out for PvP. But I just wanted to explain that. Like, of course you want to spec into electronics because you want the most powerful fire turret you can get, but because they've diminished the fire turret damage so much, you're only actually doing 65% of what you could be doing. So it's not really as effective. It literally is just not as effective as everything else that's out there. You've got tons of builds that put out a ton of firepower, and this just can't, it just doesn't hang on par. No matter how good you build it out, no matter how good of a player you are, you're gonna find yourself losing to a superior build, like a striker build or a nomad build, or even like a good reclaimer or a striker, obviously, or lone star. Those all are just going to beat you to the punch because you have to spec so far in electronics. Stamina is super low, firearms are super low. It's hard to be competitive, but you can aid your team. This is more of a support situation now as a result. But let's go over the build first. So it's 9900 electronics. And because I'm using this in Skirmish and Last Stand, I had to spec one mod into firearms. So you can see this mod is firearm skill power. And all my performance mods are going to be turret damage. But this one mod is firearm skill power. And then the rest are electronic skill power. So we had to do that one because, as you may or may not know, when you go into Skirmish and Last Stand, all of your gear is mid-maxed, but it doesn't mid-max to 1401, it mid-maxes to 1272, which literally takes away points from your classified gear, because classified gear goes all the way up to 1401. So, as a result, your firearms go down. So I put this one piece in here to keep my firearms above 2874, so I can unlock certain talents on my weapons. So that's why we've got that one piece, but otherwise, electronic skill power. And you might be asking yourself, why not skill haste? Well, because again, we want the strongest turret as possible and the strongest skills as possible. We We don't necessarily need our turret to come back every 2 seconds, but we do need it to be more powerful. But again, all this is kind of redundant because the turret itself is just not as powerful as other things out there. So long story short, if you're a fan of the Firecrest like I am, I found a way to make it work, but you're not going to be trading with Striker builds and Predator's Mark builds and things like that. If you're in a one-on-one, you can most likely win. But then it comes down to your actual skill, not the build itself. So keep that in mind when you're building this out. I don't want to discourage anyone from building it out because it really is fun, and I'm guessing they will eventually adjust it to kind of get it on par with everything else, but as of now, it's a little bit inferior, but still a lot of fun to use. So like I said, all electronic skill power except for the one mod. All performance mods are going to be turret damage. Every piece of gear is rolled for electronics. And the only talents we have are competent and talented. We have it on a Navy MP5 with vicious. This should be something like responsive. Something that just complements weapon damage more. And the same for the PP19. Now, when it comes to your weapons, you can really just use whatever you want. Again, because we're spec so far in electronics, it really doesn't matter what weapons you're using because you're not going to get anything out of them because your firearms are so low. So this is kind of here just more to complement the build. Now, if you wanted to go with something that would get you those perks for the weapon damages faster, you could go with something like this build, with a shotgun build, that will get you closer to unlocking that 2% set on fire perk, and things like that. I have this one rolled for self-preserve so I can get some heal back because this one has different talents, but like I said, the weapon choices are really up to you. I'm going with these SMGs just because I prefer them. There's no other reason except that I like using them. But in short, you want to make sure, if you want to get the most out of the turret, you obviously want to make sure you rolled for electronics on everything. I've got skill haste on my chest piece, my gloves, and my holster. Oh, my holster has crit chance. I don't know why. I think this is because I only have the one holster and I have it complemented for all three of my Firecrest builds, so crit chance was just more viable for this particular thing. But you could rule this for skill haste. You could also get something like health on kill instead of skill haste because, like I said, it's kind of the margins are really low for as far as how fast you get your stuff back, and plus you don't really need it as fast because it is just a turret. The longer it's out there, the better. This one's rolled for damage to elites as well. If you're gonna roll PvE stuff, make sure you're rolling for damage to elites. But if you're looking for like a specific loadout, there isn't going to be one that's too much better than the other, only because, like I said, the set bonus is just contradictory. It's like, again, set bonus 4, weapon damage, and then the 2% chance to cause enemies to burn. All these things are based on your weapons, but you have to roll for electronics, so it's kind of contradictory, but like I said, if you like using it, go ahead and use it. So that's my build for that. This is my build for specific PvP, like if I'm going to the Dark Zone. And you can see this one's built out for firearms. I'm rolling with an Urban MDR for that additional damage to targets that have a status effect. You can see it right here. And then also, burning targets because of the set bonus. House because it's hard hitting. This one's rolled for 1, 2, 3, 4 pieces firearms, 1 piece stamina, because I'm treating this just like any other firearms build. So as a result, the turret doesn't do any damage. But the turrets very seldom do damage anyway against other targets because they're so diminished. So this is just if I want to roll and just kind of trade fire with someone. But if I want to utilize the turret, then I use something like this build, where I'm taking advantage of these talents as much as possible with the weapons. And also this one's rolled for tons of electronics. But again, it's really up to you guys. If you're looking at this video and you're like, hey, I want the most I can get out of this build, this is probably going to be the best choice. This one or this one. And again, I use this just because I prefer the SMGs. But it's really up to you guys. So, weapons is up to you. Talents, again, is up to you. Except, of course, you want to use the fire turret. I go with pulse. You can go with something like a heal. Box for the immunizer. You could even go seekers if you want. Incendiary to get some more, or airburst seeker to get some more fire damage. But this is what I'm going with. Talents, the only required talents I think you should get are wildfire, and then possibly adrenaline. And then it's up to you, whatever you want to use. If you want to get strike back or get your skills back a little bit faster, use that triage, critical save. The only must I would say are wildfire and adrenaline. But again, I'm not as specific with this build, guys, because it really is just up to you. A lot of it is just up to you, except for rolling for electronics. I got a little bit of gameplay for you. Let's go into that. But outside of that, I'm kind of discouraged by this build just because I couldn't make it as great as everything else because it's physically impossible to do. So until we get some changes to the gear itself, this is as good as it's going to get. So let's get into that gameplay. There's only really one thing to remember when using Firecrest, guys, and that is that you can control any space you want. It also forces them to make mistakes. So put the turret out, use your fire grenades, you will always be forcing your hand on whatever they're doing. Throw those fire grenades to control the area in front of you, behind you, use the turret to control the area directly around you, and that way, no matter what, they're either going to be getting burned or they're going to be getting shot by your weapons, or they're going to be forced to move out of the area. So you always have the advantage within the area that you're trying to control. Don't let them get ahead of you. You'll always be able to be on top. It's a pretty simple concept. You guys will be pleasantly surprised at how effective it actually is. But I'm going to let the rest of these play out, guys, and I will see you at the end. There it is, guys. 6-piece classified Firecrest. Control that space, force them to make mistakes, and you will end up on top every time. Go ahead and leave a like and subscribe if you want to see more from MarioGaming.com. Also, shoot us a comment if you have any questions or want to give us any feedback. It's always appreciated. Until then, go ahead. Game on.
Game on! Yeah, game on!